Hey everyone, and welcome back to episode 5 it is now. This was actually planned for episode 6, but we were so excited with our conversation we've after pushing it forward and we're releasing it for episode 5. Now, I just want to do a little introduction because kind of like this, the podcast myself and Rob record, where it's very conversational based. It's trying to get people comfortable, just have a good chat, because that's to me the most enjoyable thing to listen to. When it's too static and too interview based, for me personally, I don't find those enjoyable. And I like these to be conversations where everyone gets into this kind of a flow and just is able to kind of speak more naturally then. So we did a slight intro, which you'll hear in the podcast to come. But I just thought it was a good idea to do another brief intro myself here. So obviously myself and Rob, you know by now, we own IMPRUV and this is kind of our life, and we have other things going on as well. But we have some different guests on, and the first guest that I'm going to introduce to you is Paul Davis, okay? And he's a business mentor, business consultant, and really for us acts as a massive influence in our business and personal life, from personal development and the growth of our business. So with IMPRUV, we get a lot of insights from him. He's got an amazing head on his shoulders. He's been in this for years, and he has had so many successful businesses, so many worked with so many companies to help them have great success. And the best way of putting it is he has a great intuition. Okay, he's very, very clear on certain things that he knows people need to do in their business. So Paul is someone that we meet up with every quarter. We get clear on our goals, and you'll have heard us talk on the last podcast about this. But this was a great opportunity for us to just jump in and record a podcast before we get started on our next retreat. Okay, and this in itself might become a separate podcast, but we're going to release it here first for you guys to hear it. Now, joining us on that podcast as well is Andrew Rhatigan, who actually is not related to me, but Andrew's in real estate. He's mostly into the selling side of real estate, and he's a super interesting guy. He's a close friend of ours, and he also joins us on those retreats and works with Paul a little bit more closely, but super insightful guy, really good guy, and I think you're going to enjoy some of his insights into just day-to-day life, whatever it may be. And then we actually have another guest join us along the way, was Anneliese, and she's kind of leading the way in the fashion industry here in Ireland, but not basically the opposite to fast fashion. And she has some really nice insights into kind of bringing it back to, you know, machinists, jobs from the past that aren't even here anymore. And, you know, she's trying to encourage people now to be able to be certified in that and make a career out of these things to be proud of, because all of a sudden everything has become mass produced. We don't see those kind of tradespeople anymore just using their hands, using their creativity and imagination. So she actually gave a really nice insight into that side of the world. But overall, what you'll find is whether it's personal training, personal development, business development, fashion, real estate, I don't think they're the important things. I think every single business or thing that we do teaches us something new about ourselves, about how we interact with people, and so on and so forth. I could sit down with anybody in any business, and so could Rob, or any walk of life, and you'll learn something from them. And that's exactly what this conversation is based on. No, it's not jiu-jitsu related. We might bring it up a few times. It's just about overall personal development and moving forward, and somewhat about finding your purpose and how we can go about that. So without going on too much longer, I really hope you enjoy this, and do let us know if this is something that interests you, because we're kind of considering doing this a bit more regular as well with this kind of group of people. But listen, enjoy the episode, and we'll talk to you soon. Thanks for joining us today, guys. We're here just having a conversation. Might be the start of a podcast. It's myself, Austin Rhatigan, Paul Davis, Rob Crow, and Andrew Rhatigan, who's smiling his head off at me here. So this might be the direction of the conversation. There's lots of laughing and giggles, but we might have some serious things in here too. But no, we're here together because Paul is a business mentor, business consultant, but also very good on the personal development front. So we meet quarterly. We have a great time down in a wellness retreat center. We get very clear on what it is we want to focus on personally, business, spiritually, the whole lot for the coming quarter. And for me, it's been an absolute game changer. We've had some amazing conversations to date, and why not record these conversations and maybe see if they could help somebody else along the way. So maybe I might throw it over to Paul. I think maybe a good start is even behind the reasoning why you started these retreats, shall we call them?
Thank you very much. Well, I was actually forced it.
Andrew.
No, so I was running the community for a number of years. I ran an annual retreat within that community at the beginning of each year. So we've run 3 of them so far, each January. And out of that, a number of people said that they would like to meet up more regularly. So we set the agenda of, okay, let's try and meet up quarterly and see how that goes. So I said I would give a year commitment of running a retreat each quarter. We've had the first one in March 2024. This one now is June 2024 that we're having now. I know from being in contact with each individual that the intentions that were set in January and also then in March have been achieved, as if not all of them, the vast majority of them, and they're quite big intentions for everybody that was on the retreat. So we're here again in June to see and review how we've been getting on, and also to set new intentions then for the next quarter. And it's an element of, we have really, really deep conversations. It's an element of business, it's an element of personal, it's an element of purpose, an element of meaning, spirituality, you name it, every subject matter that you could possibly think of, except for politics and sport. They're the 2 things that I just do not discuss. But it's just a way of people being able to take time out of their business and their life. It's only over a couple of days, and just to get a different perspective, or a much, much higher perspective on what they're doing in their life, what they want to get out of their life. And let's have that now, as opposed to getting to the end of our career and then having what we want and what we desire. Let's start with what we want to desire now, and let's go about getting that now. So that's, I suppose, partly the intention behind having these quarterly retreats.
But just from my perspective, I'd even say to Rob, we've been talking about it. It's kind of hard to describe to people in our our work life, personal life, what it is these retreats are, what they facilitate, because they're so poignant, they're so incredibly helpful, but you can't quite put your finger on what exactly it is. I think that's probably the beauty of it, is it's when you talk about us hitting our goals, you set that 12-month goal at the start of the year, and you're going, I don't know, like if I could hit those kind of targets, because you're making us do lofty enough goals. And the second the quarterly retreat comes around, you say, we can break these down into achievable goals. We have literally already hit so many goals this year, personal, business, all because of getting, to sit down, align yourself with what it is that you really want to do, and then work towards it. And because they're bite-sized goals, they really do feel super achievable. They can be hard, but they feel achievable. And what they do is build the confidence then to work towards that 12-month goal. And actually, Rob, you were kind of, you were talking a lot about this, I guess, like, what's your experience with this?
For me, and something I mentioned recently, is 12 months can go by so quickly, and nothing can happen unless you really set the intention for it, or make the change, or face into what it is you actually want to do, and again, setting some of those goals. And that's part of what drew me here. First of all was, I worked a career up into a certain level, and I just wanted something more, didn't feel fulfilled, knew I needed to make a change, but there was so much I needed to face into just in my own, I guess, barriers that I built myself, and sort of breaking those down and starting again. And you do need someone to hold that mirror up to you and say, you need to focus on X, Y, and Z, and just X, Y, and Z for now, and then that will all ladder up to that lofty ambition that we have. So for me, it's been a bit of a roller coaster. It's been up and down. You've faced into more things than I thought I would at the start. I thought it'd be plain sailing from here. It's like, this is my dream, this is what I want to do, it's going to be easy. But there's been so many fears and trepidations I've had to face, but I'm so grateful for having faced those now, and I know there's more down the line. I know I'm on that path now. So yeah, for me, it's been massive. And again, just breaking it down into those achievable goals and quarter by quarter has been super helpful. I've noticed a bit of a cycle myself in that I come away from these retreats really, really high and really, really positive, and I put a lot of energy into the first couple of weeks, and then I start finding myself old habits popping back up again, or almost tests in certain ways to say, oh, are you sure you don't want to go this route? Are you sure you don't want this easier life, quote unquote? And then you kind of hit this valley again, and then you come back up, and it I feel like we go through those cycles anyway, but the retreats kind of bring them closer together in that you get through one cycle quite quickly and you're on to the next.
But it was what you said, and I know you covered it there, was without these markers, it's almost like 12 months go by and you're like, I never even did that one thing that I set out to do at the start of the year, you know. And, you know, obviously, like you're saying, it can be challenging and it can kind of be ups and downs, but at the same time, it still holds you accountable.
Oh, yeah. And you feel like you're moving forward, which is great. And you feel like you're building momentum.
But I think it's not really just around you set a goal and you go after achieving it. Like anybody can do that. But I think what everybody experiences is like that. It's the feast and famine, or it's the cycle that people go through. It's the roller coaster. It's the mental blocks that come up. It's the motivation, the commitment, the desire to go after the particular goal, the different fears that come up. It's dealing with all that stuff that not many people talk about. They just say, okay, I'm going to set a goal, and everybody kind of gets on the bandwagon about maybe setting a SMART goal. I don't believe in SMART goals. There's a different way of setting goals, and I use the word intentions. But when you do it in the right way, and knowing that there's still stuff going to come up, but knowing how to address each of the elements, that's where you get your intentions coming through.
And actually, from our perspective, Rob, is we are now using our business growth as a catalyst for personal growth. And it's something that I actually think, even from our conversations before this, we never really discussed it in a sense. It's, you can have your business, but it doesn't mean that it can't help you to grow in the areas of life, or, you know, align it with what you're trying to do with your life and how you're trying to grow. So for me, it's communications based. You know, how can I get better communications through this business? How can I break through some of my perceived barriers before? How do I go about that and use this business to help me to do that? And I've really found that, because like you're saying, it's not a goal, we're setting intentions, and it's such a difference in your intention to grow, and, you know. So.
But I also think part of it, when you're looking at the intentions, I think the naivety when you go into starting a business is that you're going to have this clear separation between your personal and your professional. And like you said, Rob, you're thinking of it as linear, which is you start, you register a name, you have a couple of bits along the way, and then hey presto, you're giving a presentation, or you're going to get IPO'd, and you're not taking into account the personal element of your life. And I think when I started to break myself down in a positive way, it was kind of like a car. I took it apart to figure out how I worked. And when I did that, I was able to reverse engineer how I wanted to live life. And what I realized was that the personal goals I had, my personality, my viewpoint, my values, then spilled into the business. And I went from being a generalist in what I did, assuming that the path that other people had was the right one for me, instead of blindly following it and hoping it got me the end result. I realized, okay, there's things here I don't like a menu. There's things I don't want to do, there's things I do want to do, and there's things I'm curious about. But that then spilled into the personal as well. So I found that one of the great things is my wife is a great advocate of this, is that our work and our life are interlinked. That it's not a case of I'm going to leave work there and that's not part of my life, because I'm not doing it for someone else. I'm doing it for me and for my family and for my future. So when you look at that investment piece from a personal perspective, you realize that there's a lesson in everything. Every level of discomfort in business can be applied in personal. It could be a difficult conversation. It could be noticing your shortcomings. It could be repeating the past. Whereas if you're in a job where you're working for someone else, you will inevitably repeat mistakes or do things you don't like because you're going to get a paycheck at the end of it.
Yeah.
When you don't have that, I think you're far more aware of a lesson because you're the one that has to pay for it.
Yeah.
And I think that's one of the great benefits of something like this.
Yeah, sure. And actually what I was going to say is, without Paul, we wouldn't be here. But actually, without Andrew, myself and Rob wouldn't be here. And that was, you know, really important piece to this is, you're really good at, you know, looking at the bigger picture here, and then bringing us along on this journey was a really, like, I find that really hard to pick someone to come into this space now because it is so personal. We do get very vulnerable. We get to the core of what it is that we're afraid of maybe, and what it is, almost afraid of your dreams. But it was just a really, very grateful that you actually brought us into this circle. And it's already grown so much. We have so much, respect for Paul and respect for yourself. And it's been so good.
It's great to hear. I think I'd echo that from the perspective of there are many things that can be measured, I think, where you can test something. So if you're trying to run a marathon or trying to run 5K, you can time yourself and you can improve on that time. But I also think there's things you can't put your finger on. And initially when I met Paul, when I started my business, I Googled business consultant. I was trying to figure it out. And at the time, his name, I thought, okay, great, let's make a call. I had a great call with him. And at the end of it, I felt I wasn't being sold to, but I also felt that it wasn't someone who wasn't aligned with who I was as a person. So I think I equated to fitness awesome, like you guys are in fitness, that some people need to be shouted at to get the job done.
Yeah.
Other people need encouraging phrases, and other people need to be guided in their own way.
Yeah.
And after the call with Paul, I then realised, without realising, that his book was on a shelf in my office. And I suppose that's the jumping ball.
How did you get in there, Paul?
It was pretty efficient. You pick locks like no one's business. And I think the reason I say
my
that
face
is,
on the cover.
Part-time burger.
but there's actually a tangible example of the unknown in ways that's guiding you to other things. So I think one of the things I've become really open to is there is the mathematical equation, there is the kind of logic that you can put to life, but then there's also the magic in the unknown. And I think it's sometimes like your gut guiding you on something. That when I met Paul, had a call, I started working with him before it made sense for my business, as in on paper if I talked to someone else.
Yeah.
But ever since then, it's become something where I will defer to Paul from the point of view of, even if I'm only reaffirming what I want to do, but my business is 100% different than if I was left to my own devices. If I was left to my own devices, I would still be doing the same thing. And all I would have done is replace my previous job with another job and not be enjoying what I'm doing.
Yeah.
But that's the pivotal difference. And like you said, Austin, trying to explain to someone how that works or who might understand it, it's exciting to kind of know that you can't describe it, because sometimes you have to do the work to understand it. But then it also is an interesting one when someone asks you to write in the back of a napkin, what does he do or how does it work? I'm like, well, I don't know and I need another napkin.
But,
Because it's like what you said earlier on. Sorry, it's like what you said earlier on, Andrew, in terms of, people look for this work-life balance. And I laugh every time I hear it. And because they separate their lives. They say, I've got a work life, and then I've got a life, personal life balance, a family life balance, and so on. And they make boxes, as opposed to taking a different perspective and say, okay, so but how can I be one? So how is it that I want to work? How is it that I want to engage with clients? How is it that I want to do business and so on? And then with a blank napkin, perhaps, or two, do you start off actually putting your blueprint together as regards what it is what's more aligned with you, your values, your purpose, what it is that you're here to do, the difference you want to make, the business that you want to grow, how much success you want, what success look like. It's starting from that blank perspective, as opposed to what most people do is actually follow a lot of other sheep, because they become a solicitor, they become an accountant, or become, in Andrew's case, a real estate agent or whatever it would be, and so on, and they set up their business exactly the same way as everybody else, like a cookie cutter approach. And now that's why they have to have a work life and a personal life, as opposed to if they actually approach it from a different perspective, it's all one. It's all one life.
It's an interesting one, because what's come up a bit recently, Paul, and I know myself and Andrew and Rob have touched on this a little bit, is where does that kind of stem from? And without getting into the depths of it, is it this school system where you say, right, everyone's coming through school and saying, oh, well, are you going to be A, B, or C, essentially, and don't mind the other options? But what about driving home the fact that you should be following what it is that you really want to do? You should be taught how to perhaps start a business, run a business, do accounts, do your tax.
Starts at home. Starts in the home.
Starts in the home, yeah.
Because you're observing your parents.
Yeah.
And how they're interacting. Even if you take multiple different examples. So whether you take, the stereotypical where, like, my family growing up, my dad went to work, my mum looked after the family, there was 7 of us. So Jesus, there was an awful lot of work there. But she managed at home. And so growing up, that's the perspective you had, that the male perspective went out and they got the money and they brought it back and they handed over the paycheck, and literally you looked after the house from that side of things. So it actually starts in the home, and even if you take it now where you might have both parents working, kids at a very, very young age are imprinted so much in every single thing, not by primarily what you say, but actually what you do. So if you're coming home, like I remember distinctly, nearly every single evening, I'd see my dad coming home, and he'd spend a couple of hours writing up notes for the work that he was doing. So that was him still working when he got home. And then after that, then he'd take out his newspaper and he'd start reading newspaper. So that was literally my observation Monday to Friday.
Yeah.
If you take it now, kids are looking at their parents, and their father might take out the laptop and they're on the laptop, and the mother might take out their phone and they're on the phone for hours and hours and hours. And they just grow up exactly the same way, repeating exactly what their parents have done. So yes, it from my perspective starts in a home, but then it starts with society. It starts with, the aunts, the uncles, the relations, the grandparents, and what beliefs that they're instilling in them. And then you go to school, and then you're taught, you're straight into this ladder in terms of, it's about a scoring mechanism. It's about, how are you better than the other, and you're graded in each of the classes, and you're taught different lessons that may not be, like me personally, I couldn't learn languages for whatever reason.
Yeah.
But yet you still have to learn languages.
Yeah.
But for what? So again, it starts off in the home, because that's where you're spending most of your time as a baby and a child growing up, and then it moves into society, into school, and then from there on you're into a career, and you're just basically following everybody else doing exactly the same thing, and we're all like sheep.
Yeah, and
Even
you are, yeah.
what gets rewarded as well, because I remember when I left college, it was always who would land the job at the big firm, or who would get the big job. It was never, and that was celebrated, and it wasn't celebrated if someone said, no, well, I'm going to set up my own business, or I'm going to try my own thing, or I'm going to go a different path.
Yeah.
That wasn't celebrated. It was more like, what are they doing?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, but the home piece, like,
Yeah.
there's difference obviously, because you, for example, without getting into the depths of it, have carved your own path really well. Like, you've gone, I don't want to do what happened here, but for a lot of cases, I never really thought about it. Of course, it starts in home, and only the other day my mum was saying, my 4 sons actually all work for themselves. My dad always worked for, not always, he did have other jobs, but predominantly it was always someone who worked for himself. And I've never put the two and two together, that I've always wanted to work for myself. And my 3 other brothers, we all work for ourselves. Yeah. So it is a good point to make,
Well, you absorb it, because I think it goes one or two ways. You either run to or run from what you've experienced. So I exact example, which is, my wife not a week goes by where there isn't a story that's regaled from her life. And if I made a joke and I said you had the perfect life, she said I had an absolutely amazing life. She talks about being abroad, like not even abroad, going down to Mayo, country holidays. I've heard the same story about 100 times. And what's funny is when you hear how she enjoyed it so much, that has had an impact on what experiences she wants to give our children. But equally, I can also see that because her family weren't entrepreneurial, they had this association with a job equals safety. Whereas I grew up with the dad who was trying to figure it out, make it work. One month you're in business doing well, the next month you're trying to figure it out, robbing Peter to pay Paul. But I think that it was a great kind of a story or fable about the father who was an alcoholic and had 2 sons. And one of the sons never drank, and the other son became an alcoholic. And the son who became an alcoholic blamed the father. And they were talking about how one ran to it and one ran from it. But I think when we go back to the core of when you are a kid, I'm of the firm belief, because I currently, at the time of this chat, I have an 8-year-old and a 3-year-old. I'm of the firm belief that a kid, my 3-year-old, knows the meaning of life. Like, and that's not a like a thing of like, woo woo. I'm actually kind of like, she's born and she literally is there, and when you see her playing with something, when you see her running around, she's not concerned about taxes, she's not concerned about the weather, she's not concerned about the 10 minutes after the activity she's doing. And then I think by virtue of our society, there has to be some element of, well, there's so many of us, there has to be a structure, and there's no time for us to find ourselves. So I'm just going to give you this structure, follow that, and then kind of let the emotional fallout happen when you're able to look after yourself almost, and you're retrospectively trying to fix yourself. Whereas the reality is, if you brought a whole lot of people into a room, there are going to be some people that have a natural affinity for words, for languages, for numbers, and if they had the chance to spend 16 years exploring what that means with the freedom to fail, by the time that kid is 18, they don't need 20 minutes with a guidance counsellor, because they've spent 16 years experimenting. And I think I would love to see people create something, because there are jobs now that our children are going to have that don't exist yet. I don't even know whether my daughter will learn to drive at this stage because the way cars are going.
Yeah.
So the magic in that is if you look at it and you realize that there are so many elements of school where you can have a great teacher and you can have those great social experiences. But the downside is if you rely on someone else to raise your kid, you're then not instilling in them that resilience. So part of my resilience with my kids is showing that I'm fallible. Like I'm told them I make mistakes all the time. If I make a mistake, which I did in the last couple of weeks, I literally sat down and said, see there, I made an absolute hames of that.
Yeah.
And here's the lesson I learned from it. Because I want them to realise that they could keep failing for the rest of their life, but have the idea of dust themselves off, get on with it, and they'll find the result as opposed to seeking the result in a title in a job somewhere else. And that's not me saying that everyone should work for themselves. But I think historically people assumed if you get a job working for another company, your life will be okay because it's safe. The only thing that's safe is decisions you make for yourself because you can pivot. If you work for someone else without the understanding that they run a business, they have a bottom line to cover, life changes, you're hoping that someone else fulfills your dreams as opposed to taking charge of that yourself. And obviously experimenting, making mistakes along the way and going with it.
Yeah, I think that's huge. Making mistakes, encouraging mistakes. Go out and break things and figure out and learn from it.
It's such an Irish thing as well, though. Like, you see someone who's failed, nothing like a great news story. In the last couple of weeks, you'll see a couple of builders where they're reconfiguring what they're doing and everything else. And I suppose because I'm in property, I'm quite mindful of it, but no one sees what goes into that. And I've already heard 3 or 4 conversations of people reveling in the fact that these people are going through kind of either a challenging time or whatever. They're not looking at them and going, how great is that? What can I learn from them? Or good on them? Because people aren't encouraged to fail. It's seen as this something you're supposed to be ashamed of.
But it's even more crucial now. As you're saying it, you look at the social media world that we're in and everything is so polished and perfected. There's less and less failures being seen. And actually, in fact, all of these people have been absolutely nobody until they were somebody. So they're not showing those fails where they absolutely have. And it's very distorting, I think, for the younger kids.
And they don't see the work that goes into it because I saw a picture on LinkedIn, and again the weekend we're recording this, it's Taylor Swift is on there. But there's a picture of her 18 years ago playing somewhere on a beachfront, and tiny audience, and literally just a few people in the audience, and that's one picture, but that's 18 years ago. And then you take a picture now where literally she's global domination in effect. And people forget that it took her 18 years to get to this point.
Absolutely.
And she's gone through so many different challenges. Now, bear in mind, I'm not a Swiftie, so just want to put that out there.
Put away your tattoo, Paul.
But she went through so many different challenges. But again, people look at people that are, again, in air quotes, are successful. They don't realise the amount of work that goes into it behind the scenes. And you will get somebody that are lucky and this, that, and the other and so on. I maintain, you make your own luck. You've got to take control of your own life. When you're working in a job for somebody else, you have zero control. You've until such times you actually take control and become the highest valuable employee within that company. Now you've got control. Or if you become an entrepreneur and you set up your own business, now you're in complete control. Because a company can literally fire you. And I know there's rules and regulations and all the kinds of things around that. But at the end of the day, I've come across so many different situations where people have literally just been fired overnight. Or they've lost their job, they've been made redundant or whatever it might be and so on. And now literally their whole identity has been literally within their career. And now they have to build themselves back up again. You've got to start from taking control of your life.
100%. Because actually what's really interesting is you guys obviously know that I'm trying to buy a house at the time of this podcast, so we're in and around that. We both work for ourselves, and up to a while ago it was in and around when you were buying a house, Rob, it was tech jobs, but still are obviously the banks come at me we'll give you a mortgage to your tech,
the big salaries.
But wasn't there just a point there was like a brief point where there was certain tech companies that were just letting people go. It was Facebook, it was something along that line. They were just letting people go. And then all of a sudden it's like last week you were given the best mortgage they could find. This week they don't want to see you. So it's so transient in that situation. And those people literally, they have now got a mortgage based on X. What's up?
We got another guest arriving.
Yeah, but come on down. Sure, what time is it?
You're already chatting. You can come on
20
in.
minutes. Come on in and join in.
Come on in, you can listen in. We're just recording a podcast.
Anneliese has just entered the room.
Yes.
Fashion mogul. Fantastic
Fashion designer of the
person.
year.
Sorry about the state me. I thought I'd be here about 20 minutes early and I said I'll just get changed. Anyway,
No problem at all.
it is what it is. You're just going to have to take me as you find me, unfortunately.
That's all good. For those who don't know, this is Anneliese Duffy. She's a phenomenal. She's led the fashion charge in Ireland
I can't go sorry.
for a number of people, and she actually owns Fashion Connect, which is based in. Is it New Ross? Is that where?
In New Ross.
Yeah.
Where we are now.
Sure,
We are.
sure.
No,
Where
are we
we
in
are now?
France? No, we're in New Ross. Yeah,
We are in New Ross.
Yeah, yeah.
We
Let's
are.
check the air code.
But we were just to kind of fill Anneliese in, just a general conversation with where it was going there. And actually, prime example, you work for yourself.
Yeah.
We're in that society where so many people are ticking the box. You know, they're going through school. You actually talk about this all the time. You're a perfect example. If you don't fit the mold, or you know, you go into this job because that's what you're meant to do, so on. And it's like retrospectively, like Paul saying, get to the end of your career and go, Jesus,
What was I doing?
what was I doing? Instead of encouraging people to do what they're good at.
Yeah.
And with yourself in the textiles and encouraging
Yeah.
such an old age craft, or
Yeah.
you know, bringing that back. If you maybe want to touch on it, maybe what is it that you're doing?
Well, first I think is the more important thing to me is that it's all about having whatever sort of a life that actually is going to fulfill you as a person. And people that are in jobs that absolutely hate their jobs, that just go in because they have their mortgage or they have their family or they have the this or whatever, not only is making themselves miserable, they're making everybody else around them miserable, which is even worse.
Yeah.
So it's not really about them. So, but they're thinking about, well, it's about me and I need to do it because of my commitments to other people or because of my responsibilities and I have no choice type of thing. I don't believe in I don't have a choice. I don't believe in that. You have a choice. It's just that you don't want to do it.
Yeah.
And you can use the other commitments as the excuse not to bother. And just say, whereas if there's something that you really, really believe in and that you're passionate about and you want to do, I think you can find a way if you really, really commit to it. It's more to me about people committing. And once you commit, you'll find a way to do.
Yeah.
And, you know, and that's why when I was running the last course in Fashion Connect, everybody on the course on the first day when we sat around, I said, look, you're all here because you really want to sew. Not all of you will want it to be a career. You don't have to. But if you want it to be a career, tell me, and I'm going to make it my business to make sure I tell you how you can do it. That if it's something that you really, really want to do, but you give me the excuses as to why you can't do it, well, then I'm going to give you the excuses why you can do it. Like.
Yeah. And almost on the flip side is my experience of school is if you wanted to go down that direction, it was almost discouraged.
Yeah,
so instead of
was.
saying, oh, you do want to go against the grain, well, why don't we help you with that? You know, what can we do to encourage that?
Yeah.
And like I was saying to you during the week, Rob, is you look at tradesmen these days, for example, they're few and far between, and they're making bomb. I don't know if you've tried to hire a tradesman recently in Dublin, but my God, I think they're the next, you know, big deal. Forget tech companies, just get into trades.
I believe that all of those so-called bad careers, you would say that the parents would say, well, you can't be a this and you can't be a that, you need to go to college. Well, and I would see it very much so in the machinists, because I think that they are genuinely the brilliance of the whole industry, and they're just completely overlooked as the workers, but they're the ones who actually drive the whole lot, like, and they're not given the credit for it. But within that kind of space, because everybody was encouraged to go to college, to go to do tech jobs and go to do whatever, it's actually bred an opportunity for all of the people who have a craft that didn't go down the college route, because the people that went down the college route and went into the tech jobs and went into all this thing are now incapable of doing the everyday in their family home. So they need to hire in.
Oh, yeah.
So if you need to hire in, you need to pay. So that's okay. So from I suppose from my side of it, because I can bring it back to what I do, is that I think that people will need to get their clothes altered. They will need to get the stuff done because they're buying it online more so than they're buying them in the shops. So they're not going to fit the same because they don't get to try them on. So because of that, they don't know how to sew because the schools aren't teaching the children how to sew anymore. So we've lost 2 generations of sewers. So because they're not teaching that in school, it means then the generations of tomorrow won't be able to do those type of jobs, which turns the machinists then into a better paying job, because they can charge more because nobody knows how to do it. You know yourself, if nobody knows how to do it, the person who does know how to do it can charge whatever they want.
And it's funny, the knock-on effect is right across, because just as you're talking, you know, what comes to mind is all the other things that get broken in the house. So, you know, whether it be a machine or whether it be, you know, so anything in your house, the attitude now is, okay, let's just dump it and buy a new one, as opposed to fixing it. But, you know, if you look at it from a sustainability perspective, it's not the best way to go. But you're absolutely right. Machines is one, but it goes right across the board in all
but they're going to need them,
all the different types of trades.
And I think from a governmental point of view as well, because of the charges that are coming down the line with all of the fines that are coming because we're not living up to our green sustainability goals. Because of all of that, in our sector, they will do the same. I believe they'll do the same as they did in France, that you get tax credits for getting your clothes fixed or repaired rather than buying new ones.
Yeah, that's brilliant.
So if you go and get your stuff repaired, well then you're going to get a tax credit. So it's the incentivizing of getting, and it will go across all of the different parts of you know, your home life or whatever, that if you choose to get something fixed, well, you can offset that charge off your tax credits at the end of the year to try and bring down the landfill problem and bring back down all of the other stuff that's a serious problem that isn't going to go away. Well, in order to my belief is to incentivize the consumer is to actually give them the pain, but then give them the gain. So the pain is, well, I'm going to get charged for stuff going to landfill. Well, okay, I don't want to get the charge. So that's causing me then to want to do, that's going to be a knock-on effect is a good thing. But the driver for the consumer is that they don't want to have the pain. So for, say, if you decided in the morning that you were not going to have diesel cars on the road anymore, you're not going to have petrol cars on the road anymore. Well, how are we going to get everybody into electric cars, for example? Well, I can't afford an electric car, all of these reasons why. Well, if suddenly all of the petrol stations are closed in Ireland for 4 months because there's no oil, what's going to happen? People are going to say, Jesus, I have to use public transport. Oh my God, I can't drive my car anymore. I need a car. So I'm going to have to buy an electric car because I'm not having any of this anymore. So you're nearly creating the pain, but then you get the gain in the end. So the same thing, I believe, is probably going to happen towards all of the sustainability thing and all of that. It will be a pain, but the pain will give the gain. So it'll give the better gain to society, the better gain to the landfill problem, to our sustainability strategy. All of those things will be the gain. But if there's not a pain attached, so if there's not a tax on the clothes that you buy, if there's not a tax on the different stuff, you say, well, I'm not giving the government the tax, and I'll tell you this much, I'm going to get my stuff fixed because I'm not going to give the government the tax.
It needs the incentive. There has to be an incentive. But if you bring it then back to your, you know, machinists are now becoming specialists. It's like Paul will always say, now this is something that rings in my ears and I hear it through Andrew all the time. There's always a good and a bad. So, you know, that's a prime example there of, okay, well, look, they're not getting encouraged as much to do this and people are going to tech. Oh, well, actually, now they're being rewarded because if you're brave and you go down that route, I don't want to do that, I'm going to do this, you're now being rewarded for it. And the same goes across all of these crafts, so we say, I'm looking at this lovely table in front of us. You certainly can't buy that in IKEA. And IKEA is brilliant for what it does, and it's very functional. It's people are saying it's going to put people out of jobs. It's not. People will always want these kind of things. So it actually makes them more specialist, and they want it more.
Different markets. Yeah.
Different markets. It's like us with our personal training, or me anyway with the personal training, is because there's so much free stuff online. We can watch a YouTube thing to get an exercise. We can download an app. It's all free. People don't actually want that. People want that experience. So whether the more and more free the information out there, it's actually making people say, I really want to come in and work with you because I want the personal thing. I want to just be in a community.
The fear mentality, though, I think for people, and this is where we go back to how you're encouraged or taught, is, you can continue to fix the problem for a child or fix the problem for someone, and then when they're older, they don't understand. So it's kind of almost, supervised danger, which then leads you to be able to explore these things.
Yeah.
And I think now with the advent of tech really coming into its own, that tech has always been around, and I think people have this idea that it's going to take jobs and everything else. There is also the kind of almost Darwinian thing of like, you either change or you die. And that's just, and I don't mean die as in you actually drop dead. I mean from the perspective of life is always moving, things are always changing. The environment today is not the same as it was in the 50s and 60s. But when you look at the role of the interpersonal bit, and there's almost a great option there, which I was talking to an architect this week who is embracing AI, and he's going, AI is kind of going to essentially be perfection, let's just say, for example. So it isn't going to have emotion, it isn't going to have all the cadence that humans have. But what he's doing is he's almost embracing the wabi-sabi element, which is, I don't know, for people who don't know, wabi-sabi is where you have pottery or say a vase, I think it's Japanese culture, that's broken, and you use gold leafing to show all the cracks in the beauty in it.
Yeah, brilliant.
So what really resonated with me with that was that he's gonna curate things that aren't absolutely perfect because they form part of a story. And I think that's the idea when you have people that have businesses that do their own thing. That's what's going to actually complement the likes of technology. Because I look at technology to be embraced from the point of view of, let it take all the stuff I don't want to do, and let me sit and do the things I really want to do. So AI isn't going to have the kind of conversations I want to have. Yes, it can have conversations, I know, but if it can do 80% of the things I don't want to do, that enables me to build a business based on who I am and what I want to do. And I also think that conversation isn't being had by a lot of people who are, and I think at the moment it's probably a very Irish thing, the mummy and daddy who are having coffee or dinner with the family friends, such and such is going into one of the big five, such and such is going to go do this, and they're living through that kid, and that kind of almost starts at the beginning of, solicitor, accountant, doctor, I don't care if you actually don't like it, but when you do it, I can tell everyone at a cocktail party, you do it, and sure, you have a breakdown when you're 50, don't worry about it, I won't be around. But I think that forms part of the craft of textiles and how you can use your abilities and experience to create something out of nothing. Because how many of the biggest companies in the world now, if their parents said at a dinner party, Richard Branson, oh yeah, my son has like a magazine.
There is a hope.
Like, what's that?
It's a half-wit. Like,
that's terrible at a dinner party. Like, it doesn't make any sense. And when you think, like Portaloos, oh yeah, my son is a toilet that can be moved around the place.
Yeah, like how ridiculous is that?
It changes the game in one shape or another. So the reason I think of it is that we have such a dynamic, broad stroke of things in life, whether it be the crafting element and that real personalised idea, whether it be tech, whether it be a mixture of both, or whether it be going completely back to basics and living as our parents and grandparents would have lived, which was, okay, I'm going to spend 400 quid on a jumper, but I'm going to have it, my granddaughter's going to have it.
Yeah. Well, I think what it is for us, it's understanding the paperware value. And so we have kids come in from different from different schools, and we do transition years, and they come in for 2 hours. And we get a load of hoodies or tops or whatever they are donated to us from Vision Ireland. Right, we get 100 kilos of clothes every 2 weeks, and we can chop them up, we can do whatever we want with them. And we had a couple of different groups in from from transition year from schools around the area, and they come in and I say, look, we're going to sit down and we're going to watch a boring video, ram it down your throat about landfill and the world and da, and you're all going to sit there and you're going to be depressed, but then we're going to go upstairs and we're going to have fun. And they come upstairs and they're all kind of looking a bit sorry for themselves and about, oh my God, I'm never going to buy anything on Shein again. And you just know they're on their phone 20 minutes later, like ordering the next thing for a tenner. So then we take them up the stairs and say, okay, so here's bags of hoodies, for example. And we're going to cut them all up. And we're going to make snoods. We did a load of those for the different schools. And say, okay, so here's your opportunity right now with over 6 or 7 billion people in the world. You are now going to have something by the time you leave here in an hour from now that nobody else on the planet has the same as you. Nobody. And even the person beside you hasn't got the very same thing as you have. And so pretend that this is €10 and you have your 5 minutes to shop on Shein, to spend your €10 to get something over from China, what was made in whatever which way, under whatever conditions, to human beings and to their families in whatever which way, and we talk a little bit about that. And I say, but what I'm going to show you how to do, I'm going to show you how to do super, super fast fashion. And they pick the different colours, we chop them up, then we go into the training room and the girls from downstairs come up, or when the students were there, they did it. And say, you're going to go from one machine to the other and you are going to watch your snood be made in 10 minutes. So you go in the door with your pieces of fabric, and then 10 minutes later you get your label stitched on and you go out the other door, and now you have something to wear. You say, that's faster than press and pay on your phone and waiting for something to arrive. So the next time that you're going to do that, why don't you contemplate going into a second-hand shop, picking up something for €2, making it into something else, and then chance your arm, set up an Etsy shop, put it on Etsy, and I bet you'll triple your money. And they go, oh my God, that's unreal. I go, how about if you could take your €10 pocket money and change it into €25 by using your brain? And then what you can do then is you can go to all of the stuff in your wardrobe that you don't wear anymore, make it into brand new stuff, sell it, and then by the end of your transition year, you now have a business.
But this goes back to actually what we're saying is people are not taught that. They see textiles, okay, so I work here and I just do X, Y, and Z, and it's how to make that business out of it. Like how do you end up doing what you love and show them how to make money? Like I've seen someone on Etsy or something like that. It's just rang a bell, and they got a bunch of old. They'll go in and find 5 different Adidas pieces, and they chop it up and make this incredibly cool combination piece. Sell it for good money.
Bit of bank.
Everybody wins because you've got this unique piece, which again goes back to the furniture, goes back to everything. What are we missing? Everyone has the same stuff. New hoodie comes out, I want them. New runners come out, everybody else has them, I want them. Why don't we have something unique? But with that in mind, because I think relatively soon coming to a close, so that we can get on with the retreat here with Paul, get on with our own goals, intentions. Where, like, Paul, I'll direct it to you. We're in our early 20s, we're in our late teens, or we have kids of the same. How do we encourage people to find their purpose, to find their direction? What are the things that we can kind of do to say, now I can kind of laser in on what it is I love. Maybe I could make a career out of this. How do they go in the right direction? Or even me personally, I feel like I'm getting a great sense of direction from you. What would be your advice to these younger people, or the people that are influencing the younger people, to help them break from the mold, move into a life of purpose and fulfillment?
That's a whole separate podcast.
It is. It is. You're
no,
right.
I mess with you. Yeah, no, look, I could talk for decades on this, because I go against the grain on what everybody else talks about in terms of purpose and how you find your purpose and so on. But what I will say is that you can actually tell from a very, very young age of what an individual's life purpose is.
Okay.
And the first thing, so Andrew, you've got 2 kids, let's say 8 and 3.
3,
yeah. So if you were to observe the 3-year-old and the 8-year-old, and what they even observe from the perspective of what they spend their time on, what's their conversations, what is it that they're just naturally drawn towards, you will have a really good insight as regards the path that they want to pursue. what happens, and again it goes back to what we discussed earlier on in the conversation, whereby our kids will follow the lead from the parents and observe what they're doing, and then they just copy what the parents are doing. Secondly, our parents will tell our kids what, and you'll see this in grandparents as well. So parents and grandparents will tell the kids what they should do or pursue what they should do. And even take it from a perspective as simple as, one kid wants to play, Gaelic football, and the other person wants to play rugby, but then they're forced down the rugby route because that's what the parents want their kids to be doing. So kids are molded, as opposed to, in society right now at the moment, kids are being molded as opposed to observing what is the kid naturally drawn towards. And now you can find what it is that they are, what their purpose is, and what they're actually here to pursue, and what's going to give them the most meaning, most fulfillment, most enjoyment, most absolutely everything, and also the most success in all the different ways. I'm not just talking about financial success, but if they were to pursue it from that perspective, yes, they get the levels of success that they are here to actually achieve. And I've observed that in my kids. And if I look at definitely the youngest one in terms of how he's gone in his career, and that he went through primary school and secondary school, and he used to go home from secondary school, so what on earth am I going to this school for, because it's just rubbish. Speaking as a true teenager, but he just, for one better word, he survived going through school, primary school and secondary school, just because you needed your leaving cert at the end of it. You needed this piece of paper at the end of it, which is absolutely ridiculous from my perspective. And again, I can talk about my own leaving cert journey as well, but he had everything that he followed was all about investigation, all about crime, all about how are different things done from an FBI perspective or a CIA perspective or a police perspective and so on. He's now roll forward, so my youngest is 27 now, and he's now doing and pursuing a career that he is absolutely directly fitted for, and he absolutely loves, which is cybersecurity.
I thought you were going to say professional criminal butcher.
But you listen to it. But there was, and you can tell that from a very, very young age. But if you just allow those kids to develop and grow and blossom, they'll turn out amazing.
Yeah, it's that conscious parenting thing it is becoming more apparent. We try with our kids as best as we can, just allowing them to make the decisions, guiding them and nudging them, and you can see the difference between the little bit of fear in them or the not want. And if there's a little bit of fear, of course we're going to encourage them and help them along. But if it's something they're not into, I mean, yeah, we all spend years, especially in the likes of school, doing stuff. I'm a prime example of someone who could never get behind studying for something I didn't have any interest in. Give me something I liked, I'll excel in it. Don't like it, I can't do that. So what you did say, Paul, I think a nice way to finish it is, it's not only important to kind of nurture the path of what it is you really want to do and what you're here to do. Not only are you going to probably get financial success, you're going to be fulfilled, you're going to be more content, happy, etc. Life overall is going to be better. And it's just that we think success is equal to money, and in fact it's such a broader spectrum, and this is what we could talk about for days and weeks, isn't it? And the starting point for that is, really trying to hone in on what it is that you're here to do, what fulfills you. And once you're doing that, the success will come. But I think we'll leave it there. It's been a really nice conversation, and we're going into, another couple of days of just hanging out with each other. Anneliese, hands over eyes. We're all semi-nervous, semi-excited. I don't know what's going to come of it, but this has been a really nice conversation. If you do like this conversation and you hear it, please let us know. And maybe we'll do it again, or it might become a thing. But sure, if you don't take the first step, which is this conversation, you never know what will come of it. But thank you guys for, joining us today, and we'll leave it there.
Thanks, Alistair.
Great.
Thanks, guys.
Nice.